Hello, hello, hello. Good morning to you all. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on the position of the globe you are placed. It has been long without Hot Eyes Show. It is back, and we are going to get this show again on every Sunday. So, for you not to miss some of our shows or all of them, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Humanist TV Africa. Subscribe to us on YouTube, on Facebook, on TikTok at Humanist TV Africa. And for inquiries, maybe you just want to talk to us, you can get us at info@humanisttvafrica.com or contact us via WhatsApp +2547473567677 or visit our website www.humanisttvafrica.com. Please don't forget to subscribe. Today, we have an interesting show. Last time when we had this show, we were talking about the leaders of Gabriel Mugabe. And I thought that if we talk of Robert Gabriel Mugabe, then we don't talk of Morgan Richard Shankrai's life and legacy. It might be unfair. It has to be balanced. And since we are reflecting on Morgan Richard Shankrai's life and legacy today, I tried to dress the way he used to dress myself. The cape I have today is normally called the Chalangun, but anyway, Sangrai used to like this type of caps, and even this shirt, and yeah. So the introduction I'm giving to you is also taken from a book, actually, which was published on Morgan Tsvangirai, Richard's life and legacy. And the book was edited by the likes of Ngondashe Marongwe, Fidelis Peter, Thomas Duri, Munyaradzi Mawere. Munyaradzi Mawere was one of my lecturers at some point, taught me philosophy of culture. Morgan Richard Tsvangirai is arguably the most polarizing figure and advocate of democracy and human rights in the history of opposition politics in Zimbabwe. He is as much a topic of debate in Zimbabwe and beyond as the late President Robert Gabriel Mugabe. Tsvangirai's legacy, like Mugabe, remains indisputable, controversial, and conflicted. Broadly, the divided opinion on Tsvangirai legacy can be represented firstly by those who argue that Tsvangirai was the champion of democracy and the face of struggle for human rights in Zimbabwe. In this light, Tsvangirai has been variously described as selfless people's hero, a colossus of struggle for democracy, the commander of the struggle, a symbol of courage and resistance, and the doyen of constitutionalism in Zimbabwe. On the other hand, critics have described Tsvangirai as a sellout, a Judas Iscariot, a traitor, a coward, among other nefarious and pejorative characterization. Drawing on all these opinions and the various characterization of Tsvangirai, this particular show, drawing on all this characterization, provides a comprehensive and multidisciplinary appraisal of a gigantic trade unionist and a political figure who, in his life and in death, inspires different narratives, emotions, and values. This show is therefore about a mortal but living figure who left an indelible mark on Zimbabwe, Africa, and the rest of the world in fields such as the trade unionism, governance, and politics. As such, the show is meant for students and practitioners in African studies, political science, policy studies, economics, history, and global studies and development studies. So that to have just an overview of Morgan Richard Tsvangirai's life, I'm going to allow you to watch a short documentary on his life. Then we proceed with the show. We say a lot about how he was born, where and when, how he fed, and what happened towards his death, and what lessons can we draw from him. And if we are to resurrect him today, what can he say with the current situation in Zimbabwe? Please enjoy the short documentary.
Hello President, ndinambofona nanga chibvunza totora gwara ripi mavita yenyu save mavita yenyu Tsvangirai. Mayenza narembo chayarira, mayenza sero yangu yarira, mamunza Tsvangirai chipindura, vakomana famba igwara rimwe. Mayenza narembo chayarira, vakomana sero yangu yarira, mamunza Tsvangirai chipindura, vakomana famba igwara rimwe. Mayenza narembo chayarira, vakomana sero yangu yarira, mamunza Tsvangirai chipindura, vakomana famba igwara rimwe. Chatai famba na chasa Chatai famba na muteto, chatai famba na machiridza, chatai famba tichimira, chatai famba tichibvunza, Tsvangirai totora gwara ripi, chatai famba na chasara, chatai famba na muteto, chatai famba na machiridza, chatai famba tichimira, chatai famba tichibvunza, Tsvangirai totora gwara ripi, wayenza Tsvangirai chipindura, wayenza Tsvangirai chipindura, wayenza Tsvangirai chipindura, vakomana famba igwara.
Morgan Richard Tsvangirai was a luminary politician, a doyen of democracy and an icon of love, peace, service and sacrifice. The leader of the MDC, a trade unionist and a prime minister of Zimbabwe at some point. President Tsvangirai cannot be ignored in Zimbabwe's history.
Makono zvirambe zvakadaro chikara chezanu.
Chikara chezanu ndiwe Morgan, chikara chezanu yomira.
If I were Morgan Tsvangirai and I was looking at this diverse crowd, I would say to myself, this speaks to my character. This speaks to the great legacy that I have left for the people in the country that I so much loved. I think Morgan Tsvangirai would have been happy. You realize that in his forthcoming book that we are writing together, Service and Sacrifice, if you read chapter 2 of that book, he says in that book, and he's referring to the funeral of Susan Tsvangirai, and he says, and I quote, "Even if I were to meet my maker, I don't think at my funeral there would be such a huge crowd as the diverse crowd that attended the funeral of Susan Tsvangirai." Close quote. I think that in his assessment of the kind of funeral that was going to be his funeral, he was wrong. Because at his funeral he actually went on to treble the number of mourners who actually gathered at Susan Tsvangirai house. He never thought that he was going to have such a grand funeral. He never thought that he was going to surpass the funeral of Susan Tsvangirai. But what we saw in Buhera in February of 2018 was something else. I think we saw a huge crowd. We saw the nature, the global nature of his appeal. I think it was very clear to everyone who was there that we are talking here about a towering brand that touches the hearts and souls of a diverse group of people.
He struck me as a very simple person, one who lived as he led and led as he lived. He struck me as a person who knew what needed to be done. He was very clear on what he had gotten wrong in the country.
He's very arrogant. To some degree, he's very intolerant to opposition and to any alternative views. He likes loyalty. He likes to be worshipped. I think that is the reason why a lot of his ministers have turned into sycophants. People who just sing praise, they don't ever give him critical analysis.
Any rational Zimbabwean will realize that Mugabe is acting as a lone ranger. I think he's just sidelined his cabinet. parliament has been dissolved. So he's acting alone.
I've been explaining to the president that Zimbabwe is coming out of a political conflict and economic collapse or decay, and that the new political dispensation we have crafted is an attempt to arrest this decay.
If you want this inclusive government to deliver hope to the people of Zimbabwe, then you must regard the MDC as an equal partner, not as a junior partner. We are not a junior partner when we have got the mandate of the people. Political parties are but the objective iripo ndekuti ZANU-PF political governance must come to an end. We cannot abandon the issue of reforms. Electoral reforms are important for a free, fair, and credible election.
It was very easy working with Morgan Tsvangirai. You were working with a normal human being. A mortal human being, fine, but a normal human being who would regard you as a normal human being, would take into consideration your own feelings. He would actually tell you the very facts, the actual facts, and then you tell you even if you want to give a spin, it is up to you, you can give whatever spin you want to give. But what has happened in this particular case is this and this and this and this. You would actually give a blow by blow account, like a client who is telling his lawyer what has happened. That's how that was the nature of my relationship with him. He will tell you the exact story and the exact position and this actual feeling, and he will say to you, whatever spin you want to give it, I don't care, but this is my actual position. So he was very honest and forthright. He was a man, I don't think there will be any other. I don't think there will ever be any other Morgan Tsvangirai.
At musi wa 27 chinonziregedza ndo chiri mumaoko haikona chiri mumwoyo. They are being intimidated. Oh yeah. The situation has not been normal for us in the MDC. We faced so many obstacles. As I speak, all the rallies have been banned. We have had to improvise in terms of how we access the people. And it's a very hostile environment.
The incident with the police yesterday, what do you think of that?
Well, it's all part of the ongoing harassment. There was an allegation that we addressed an illegal meeting, and I don't know how you define an illegal meeting in a campaign. I assume they were under instructions, but if they were not, then it also means that some of the police officers are compromising their professionalism and behaving in a partisan way, and especially in a disrespectful way, in which the leading candidate is being treated like a common criminal.
Now for me, I identified with him. I also grew up in the rural areas and came to town, and finding a person in the mold of Morgan Tsvangirai really made us at ease in terms of prosecuting the business of this drug. He was simple, he had a strong rural background, so there are so many areas where we could connect, and I miss that about him greatly. The peasant nature of engaging in a revolution. I miss that.
Violence. We condemn violence unreservedly, atini violence, because some of us we've lost loved ones, some of us we endured unnecessary violence against us. But pano tirikuda kuti taure kuti kazhinji chinonyanya kuita ndichokuti vana mufundisi isu vamwe we have refused to accept to be captive to the spirit of revenge. We have refused to be captive to the spirit
of being captive to permanent hatred.
What is amazing, when he was still in neck braces and his eyes were bloodshot, they raided Harvest House and arrested members of staff, including Zebedia Juava, Luke Tamborenyuka, myself, Melody was there, and all the people who were there. Party secretariat and the party activists who happened to be in. But what was most striking for me was when they were raiding Harvest House, they started to assault us. They were pointing guns at us, and Morgan, because he was here, he walked into the office of the Secretary General, only to realize that these guys were brutalizing me in particular. And it was so touching. He asked them, why are you beating him? He doesn't know anything. If you have questions, ask me. If you have to beat someone, then go on. After all, you have done this already to me. I thought that was very touching. It spoke to a person who was prepared to accept the suffering on our behalf. And at that moment, I felt so encouraged. This was the president of the party wanting to be beaten on my behalf. And it said a lot about it.
The last discussion that we had, they were saying that, you know what, look, because we wanted to make service and sacrifice, we thought it was going to be a campaign to go ahead with the 2018 election. But in my last discussion with him, he said, you know what, I think we must change the thrust of that. It must be a fair election. It must be some kind of fair one. And when he said that to me, I thought he was feeling it within him, that he was not going to come back. And I had to urge him on and say, no, President, you'll be back, and say, no, we have to change the thrust of that. Our initial thrust was to make it about service and sacrifice, about the huge contribution that we made in the inclusive government. But he said, no, let's change it into a fair election. Let's change it into a fair war of peace to the people of Zimbabwe. And that is exactly what we have done. So when he was in South Africa, I actually felt, he actually knew within him, he was feeling it within him, that he was not going to come back alive. I served Morgan Tsvangirai lawyer until his death. And I was truthful to him, and I was truthful to his legacy.
Why. Iri ronda rinovava muwana, maenda isu takangomirira mugana, ndiyo inzira yedu, ndiyo inzira yedu, vanomuziva vanotirai vakamba, nekuda kwekufira muri kushandawo pamusha. Matibaya panyama netesave, hatijaziva pekubata batave, famba zvakanaka mukuru wangu. Matibaya panyama netesave, hatijaziva pekubata batave, famba zvakanaka mukuru wangu.
Sare waenda, waeretso. Sare waenda, waeretso.
Tichavamba naniko,
Sare waenda,
naniko,
waeretso.
wendo kuya kwakuba,
Sare waenda,
kubara kugwira vana,
waeretso.
tichavamba naniko,
Sare waenda,
naniko,
waeretso.
wendo kuya kwakuba,
Sare waenda,
kubara kugwira vana,
waeretso. Sare waenda, waeretso. Sare waenda, waeretso. Sare waenda,
think at a personal level, I lost a friend. I lost a boss. I lost a father. The party lost an icon. Never again in the corridors of Morgan Tsvangirai House are we going to hear that raspy laughter, that raucous laughter that was always associated with Morgan Richard Tsvangirai. Zimbabweans lost a hero. It didn't need to be declared by anyone, but Morgan Tsvangirai will always remain the undisputed hero of our time.
At the end of the day, it is people power that shall survive.
Thank you very much for staying with us, and you watched a short documentary on the life of Morgan Richard Tsvangirai. And I'm sure you recalled something. You recalled something, and before we go any further into early his life, Tsvangirai was the MDC candidate in the controversial 2002 Zimbabwean presidential election, losing to Mugabe. He later contested the first round of 2008 Zimbabwean presidential election as the MDC candidate, taking 47.8% of the vote according to the official results, which was announced by Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, placing him ahead of Mugabe, who received 43.2%. Tsvangirai claimed to have won majority and said that the results could have been altered in the month between the election and the reporting of official results, because it took a month for those results to be released for election results in 2008 in Zimbabwe. Tsvangirai initially planned to run in the second round against Mugabe because the Electoral Commission called for a rerun, but withdrew shortly before it was held, arguing that the election would not be free, fair, due to widespread violence and intimidation by government supporters that led to the death of 200 people in 2008. Having said that, Tsvangirai, during the unity government, sustained non-life-threatening injuries in a car crash on the 6th of March 2009 when heading towards his rural home in Buhera. His first wife, Susan Tsvangirai, was killed in the head-on collision. As the 2017 Zimbabwean coup d'etat, some they call it the Zimbabwean coup d'etat, while others they call it military assisted a transition. We don't know which is which, but it's a question open for discussion whether it was a coup d'etat, whether Mugabe was impeached, or it was a military assisted transition. It's a discussion for another day. At that particular moment, Tsvangirai asked Mugabe to step down. He hoped that an all-inclusive stakeholders meeting to chart the country's future and an internationally supervised process for the forthcoming election would create a process that would take the country towards a legitimate regime. Unfortunately, before the elections of 2018, on the 14th of February 2018, Tsvangirai died at the age of 65 after reportedly suffering from colorectal cancer. Probably majority of people didn't know what really killed me, was in some sections they used to say colon cancer. It's actually colorectal cancer. Having said that, let us look into early life and family life of Morgan Richard Tsvangirai, because he's a person, he has a background, he has where he came from. So sometimes when reflecting on his life, it helps us to know why he was doing what he was doing and what inspired doing what he was doing. Tsvangirai was born in Buhera area in Rhodesia, in southern Rhodesia. It was during colonial era, to Karanga Shona parentage through his father Tsvangirai Chibwe Tsvangirai and his mother Lydia Tsvangirai, or popularly known in that village as Raiba. He was the eldest of 9 children and the son of a communal farmer, mine worker, carpenter, and bricklayer. He completed his primary education at St. Mark's Goneso Primary School in Wedza and was transferred by his father to Chikara Primary School in Gutu. Then he went also to Silveira, another school in Masvingo province, southern part of Zimbabwe. He completed his secondary education at Gokomere High School. After leaving school with 8 ordinary levels, 8 O-level passes, in April 1972, he landed his first job as a trainee weaver for Elastics and Tapes Textile Factory in Mtare. In 1974, an old schoolmate from Silveira encouraged Morgan to apply for an advertised job as an apprentice for Anglo-American Sipindora nickel mine in Mashonaland Central. He spent 10 years at the mine, rising from plant operator to plant supervisor. His home was Buhera, which is 220 kilometers southeast of Harare. Tsvangirai married his first wife, Susan, in 1978. The couple had 6 children. During their 31-year marriage, which ended with the wife's death in 2009 near Kakash. In 2011, Lokadia Karimatsenga claimed that Tsvangirai married her in a customary ceremony. In 2020, she had been seeking maintenance payments of about 10,000 US dollars a month to keep up with the lifestyle to which she said in court papers she had become accustomed to. We should remember that by then, Tsvangirai was the Prime Minister of Zimbabwe. A year later, his love life made headlines again after a 23-year-old woman bore him a child and he refused to support the baby until she threatened to take him to court. He married his second wife, Elizabeth Macheka, mother of 3, on the 15th of September 2012, and he was still the Prime Minister of Zimbabwe by then. So this is the short background of his life. Let us look into his political activism. Upon Zimbabwean independence in 1980, Tsvangirai, who was then aged 28, joined ZANU-PF. At least, I think some people didn't know that at some point, Morgan Richard Tsvangirai was a member of ZANU-PF, which was led by Robert Gabriel Mugabe, who later became his biggest political rival. Tsvangirai is reported to have been an ardent Mugabe supporter and to have risen swiftly in the hierarchy, eventually becoming one of the party's senior officials. He is also known for his role in the Zimbabwean trade union movement, where he held the position of branch chairperson of the Associated Mine. When he joined the ZANU-PF, he was in Mashonaland Central, as I said already, in a town called Bindura, where he was a card-carrying member and he rose through ranks. Workers' Union, and he was also the chairperson, the branch chairperson of the Workers' Union, and was later elected into the executive of the National Mine Workers' Union, where he was in Bindura. In 1989, he became the Secretary General of the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions, popularly known as ZCTU in Zimbabwe, the umbrella trade union organization of trade unions in Zimbabwe. Tsvangirai led the ZCTU away from the ruling ZANU-PF. By then, when Tsvangirai became the leader in the ZCTU, he went there and got the position on account that he was in ZANU-PF. Then when he went into ZCTU, he managed to withdraw ZCTU from ZANU-PF. In other words, he liberated ZCTU from being controlled by the ruling party ZANU-PF. As his power and that of the movement grew, his relationship with the government deteriorated. As I said, he liberated the movement, the union, the ZCTU from it. So he became so popular. And also politically, he criticized the Gukura Wundi. Gukura Wundi is a phase in the Zimbabwean history which is normally mentioned, which is normally referred to by so many politicians when they're looking for support. Sometimes Sometimes they use it factually, sometimes they don't use it effectually. 3 years after coming to power, Robert Mugabe actually ordered the 5th Brigade, a military unit specially trained by North Korea, to commit a massacre in Matabeleland in cooperation with the Minister of Defense by then. The Minister of Defense by then was Singala, led by the late also Air Marshal Peninsula, because of suspicion of an alleged counter revolution being planned by Joshua Muntabuko Ngomo. Tsvangirai would later use Kukura Winter against Zan and to drum up support in Matabeleland. Tsvangirai would later, as I said, use that to drum up support in Matabeleland. Tsvangirai has periodically toured the mass graves of the victims in Cholocho, Kez, Lopanengai, and other places in rural Matabeleland. Addressing villagers in Mapisa in 2001, he said, I quote, open quote, this was a barbaric operation by ZANU-PF. It should never have happened. It was a sad episode in our history, and the MDC will obviously want to see justice being done if it comes to power. Such human rights abuses should be revisited, and those responsible will have to account for their actions. Close quote. Tsvangirai also, at some point, he was also a member of the National Constitutional Assembly. The National Constitutional Assembly, established in 1997, was chaired by a moderator, and its day-to-day executive was run by a task force. Tsvangirai chaired the task force as the founding convener. Tawanda Mutasa, succeeding by Bishop Nemapere, served as moderator, serving with Tsvangirai in his task force. Were activists that include Love Momaduku, Weushmin Ngube, Eva Joyce Winnie, Brian Kagoro, Tendai Biti, Priscilla Misairambu. The NCA gathered individual Zimbabwean citizens and civic organizations, including labor movements, student and youth groups, women groups, churches, business groups, and human rights organizations. These individuals and groups formed the National Constitutional Assembly to campaign for constitutional reform after realizing that the political and social and economic problems affecting Zimbabwe were mainly a result of the defective Lancaster House constitution and could only be resolved through a new and democratic constitution. Tsvangirai stepped down after being elected president of the Movement for Democratic Change. Tsvangirai also won some awards. One of the awards he won is Stoli da Silva Rose Award, which in 2001 was awarded to him. The award was for outstanding achievement by an individual or organization in the activities of civil society and bringing about a fair and more justice society. Now we go into the details of his political party, the party he happened to be the founding president, that is the Movement for Democratic Change. In 1999, Tsvangirai co-founded and organized the Movement for Democratic Change with Gibson Sibanda, Ngoshime Ngube, Fletcher Duleni Ngube, and Isaac Matongo, an opposition party opposed to President Robert Gabriel Mugabe and the ZANU-PF ruling party. He helped to defeat the February 2000 constitutional referendum, successfully campaigning against it, along with the National Constitutional Assembly, the organization he worked with before. Tsvangirai lost the March 2002 presidential election to Mugabe. The election was flawed due to alleged rigging, the use of violence, media bias, and manipulation of the voters' roll, leading to the abnormally high pro-Mugabe turnout in some areas. During his journey, he used to be arrested. He faced arrest and political intimidation. Tsvangirai was arrested after the 2000 election and charged with treason. This charge was later dismissed. In 2004, Tsvangirai was acquitted of treason for all alleged plot to assassinate Mugabe in the run-up to the 2002 presidential election. George Bezos, a South African human rights lawyer who was part of the team that defended Nelson Mandela and Walter Sisulu in the famous South African Rivonia trial in 1964, headed Tsvangirai's defense team too. October 2000, he was arrested again. Tsvangirai was arrested after the government alleged that he had threatened Robert Mugabe. The Movement for Democratic Change leader had told the 40,000 supporters at a rally in Harare that if Mr. Mugabe did not want to step down before the next election scheduled for 2002, we will remove him violently. Tsvangirai says that he was giving a warning to President Mugabe to consider history, he said, open quote. There is a long line of dictators who have refused to peacefully and you have refused to peacefully resign, and the people have removed them violently. The court dismissed the charges again. June 2003, he was arrested again. In May 2003, Tsvangirai was arrested on a Friday afternoon, shortly after giving a press conference. The government alleged he had incited violence. In the press conference, he had said, open court, from Monday 2 June up to today, 6 June, Mugabe was not in charge of this country. He was busy marshalling his forces of repression against the sovereign will of the people of Zimbabwe. However, even in the context of the brutality inflicted upon them, the people's spirit of resistance was not broken. The sound of the gunfire will never silence their demand for change and freedom. Close quote. In March 2007, he was arrested and beaten again. On March 11, 2007, a day after his 55th birthday, that was on the, I think it was on the 13th, we celebrated his birthday on the 12th of March. Tsvangirai was arrested on his way to prayer rally in Harare township of Highfield. His wife was allowed to see him in prison, after which he was reported that he had been heavily tortured by police, resulting in deep gashes on his head and badly swollen eye. The event garnered an international outcry. He was allegedly tortured. Special forces of Zimbabwe in the base at the Army Cranbourne Barracks on 12 March 2007 after being arrested and held at Machipisa police station in the Highfield suburb of Harare. They used jambokes, army bells, gun bars. The soldiers attacked Tsvangirai until he passed out. One of the soldiers poured cold water all over Tsvangirai to resuscitate him. Tsvangirai gained consciousness again at around 1:30 a.m. One vicious woman was left to work on him. She removed an army belt from her waist and used it to assault Tsvangirai until he passed out again. This is according to a police officer testimony in the Mail and Guardian. Innocent Chagona and Aton told Reuters after visiting Harare police station where Tsvangirai was being held that Tsvangirai was in bad shape. He was swollen very badly. He was bandaged on the head. You couldn't distinguish between the head and the face and could not see properly. A Zimbabwean freelance cameraman, Edward Chikombo, smuggled television pictures of Morgan Tsvangirai's injuries following the beating. Chikombo was later abducted from his home in the Glenview township outside Harare. His body was discovered the next weekend near the village of Darwindale, 50 miles or 80 kilometers west of Harare. There has been a pattern of abductions and punishment beating where scores of opposition activists and their relatives have been attacked by government-sanctioned gangs using unmarked cars and police issue weapons. According to lawyer Tendai Biti, the Secretary General of the MDC by then and MP for Harare East, who was arrested along with Tsvangirai, Tsvangirai suffered a cracked skull and must have passed out at least 3 times. Tsvangirai was subsequently admitted to the intensive care unit, ICU, at the local hospital. Reporters from BBC News indicate that Tsvangirai suffered from a fractured skull and received blood transfusion for internal bleeding. Although the incident was a clear case of political violence, Tsvangirai has since had very little political support from surrounding African countries. Besides that, there was a raid at the headquarters of MDC. The house, the headquarters, is popularly known as Harvest House. Now it's known as Morgan Richard Tsvangirai House. Tsvangirai was released on 28 March from prison. Zimbabwean police stormed the movement for democratic change, Harvest House, national headquarters, and once again arrested him hours before he was to speak with the media about recent political violence in the country. International reaction to political violence. The arrest of Tsvangirai and the crackdown on opposition officials that followed was widely condemned. Australia, the former Foreign Minister Alexander Donner said in a statement that the Zimbabwe government should immediately release those arrested, lift the ban on political activity, and implement immediate reforms. He said that the arrests are clear signs of Mugabe's government's desperation to cling to power in the face of the growing unpopularity among the people of Zimbabwe. The Mugabe government's disastrous policies have crippled a once thriving economy, leaving Zimbabwe enduring hyperinflation. The same also, Canada, its foreign affairs minister issued a statement. Peter Mackey, Ireland, through its foreign affairs minister, Demond Ahen, Mauritius also issued, New Zealand, United Kingdom, Tony Blair, South Africa's Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister, Azizi, it was Azizi Pahad by then. Sweden also, Skau Bildt, Foreign Affairs Minister, offered United States all those. So that was how Tsvangirai faced and other intimidation and persecution, especially in June 2008. He faced a lot. And he faced also an allegation of a coup. In 2002, Ben Menash accused Tsvangirai of plotting to overthrow the Zimbabwean government in a coup d'etat. After a treason trial, Tsvangirai was acquitted of the charge. And besides that, Tsvangirai is also condemned of being someone who was also used violence in his party to settle scores. Tsvangirai has been accused of allowing activists to attack opponents within his own party. In 2005, such allegations triggered the split in his party between his faction and the faction which was led by Washman Ngube and Atham Tambara. In February 2014, a senior party member claimed he was beaten and injured after calling for Tsvangirai to step down as party leader. Tsvangirai had said his party would investigate the allegation. An unnamed witness begged Elton Mangoma's allegations and added, "It was shocking that this actually took place right in Tsvangirai's face and with him smiling." So he was also condemned somehow. He, as I said, we are talking of a person who is also a mortal, who has also his own weakness, despite him being a victim of violence, political intimidation from the system, from the government of Robert Mugabe. Him also, he was accused of using the same tactics when settling disputes in his party. So he met a number of people in his political career. He was not only a Zimbabwean leader, he became an internationally known figure. Tsvangirai met Tsvangirai over Zimbabwe crisis after the election of 2008. In September 2007, it was widely reported that Tsvangirai met Thabo Mbeki, the former President of South Africa for crucial talks on how to speed up talks. No, it's not 2007. I think it's 2008 between the ruling party and the Movement for Democratic Change. He also met Raila Odinga of Kenya. In May 2008, Tsvangirai met Raila Odinga, the then Prime Minister of Kenya, who urged him to contest an election runoff against Mugabe, which he later on actually withdrew from. So we are talking of the election which was held in March 2008, the election which actually led to the unit government in Zimbabwe. The presidential election and parliamentary election was held on 29 March 2008. The three major candidates were Mugabe, Tsvangirai, and Sibamakon. And Sibamakon was an independent. The MDC photographed data at each polling station to collect for electoral results. The official results of the presidential elections first round were finally released, as I mentioned them earlier on, when I talked of 47 for Tsvangirai, 43 for Mugabe, and this meant no candidate had 50 plus vote to declare the win after the first round runoff. But then MDC spokesperson by then, Nelson Chamisa, called the announced results scandalous daylight robbery. The MDC continued to assert that it won an outright victory in the first round with 50.3% of the vote. We don't know whether it was true or not.
Robert Mugabe
but
is still
that is what
president
they
and still center stage in Zimbabwe.
as
But
a
for the
part
first time in 28
claimed,
years, he no longer
and
has
that
a
led to the
dominant
unity government
power. That
between
was signed
Tsvangirai
today in
and
front of an audience
Robert
of
Mugabe.
African leaders and dignitaries. His old
So
rival Morgan Tsvangirai becoming
that
Prime
Tsvangirai,
Minister
he had the
with a
heart for the
stroke of a
people,
pen.
and he
They will
went
rule
into
Zimbabwe together now, and in
unit
theory
government.
decide all of their
The
differences.
Robert Mugabe,
After this
his
handshake,
long
there's a
time
long way to go.
enemy. And at the end of the negotiations before the unity government, Mbeki stated, open court, an agreement has been reached on all items on the agenda. Mugabe, Tsvangirai, and Tambara endorsed the document tonight and signed it. The formal signing will be done on Monday, 10 a.m. The document will be released then. The ceremony will be attended by SADC and other African regional and continental leaders. The leaders will spend the next few days constituting the inclusive government to be announced on Monday. The leaders will work very hard to mobilize support for the people to recover. We hope the world will assist so that this political agreement succeeds. Close quote. This was Mbeki's words on the agreement of Morgan Richard Tsvangirai and Mugabe's unity government. And
sign of a new beginning there then, and he barely mentioned the power
the unity government came and go. The elections of 2013 came and Tsvangirai lost. And he claimed that the election was actually rigged. In June 2016, fast forward to Tsvangirai's demise. In June 2016, Tsvangirai had announced that he had been diagnosed with cancer and was undergoing treatment. Over the following years, the condition just grew worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And the cause of his death, as I said already earlier on, it was a colorectal cancer. In the aftermath of Tsvangirai's death, his mother threatened to commit suicide. Actually, an interesting fact. If Nelson Chamisa, who happened to be his successor, attended the funeral, the events were commonly seen as testament to the strained atmosphere shrouding the party in the days leading to Tsvangirai's death, with leaders closest to him joking to succeed him. So, having said whatever we have said about Morgan Richard Tsvangirai, yes, people were fighting at his funeral, and he was also praised by the current president of Zimbabwe as a hero. He actually said Tsvangirai is a hero and he deserved a special place in the history of Zimbabwe, in the politics of Zimbabwe, as he was captured on ABC News. What can we learn from Tsvangirai?
Opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai. He died in a
It's a
Johannesburg
discussion
hospital
for
on
another day.
Wednesday at the age of 65.
Who is his
after a
legitimate
long battle with
successor?
cancer, and will be
Is
buried
his
in his
MDC
home
still
village
alive?
of Buhera tomorrow.
We don't know.
Zimbabwe's president
Who is
Emmerson
the actual
Mnangagwa has
successor?
praised
We don't know.
Tsvangirai, saying he was a
Having said this,
long-standing
I
political
hope
figure who had endured
we
political hardship and
learned a
deserved
lot
his
of
place in the
lessons
country's history.
from
The
this
president also called for
short
unity.
reflection about Morgan
brothers
Richard
and sisters,
Tsvangirai.
and come together and
Until we'll meet
our
again
former prime
next Sunday on another show. Bye bye for now. Thank you for being with us. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, on TikTok, on YouTube, Humanist TV Africa, or visit our website www.humanisttvafrica.com. Thank you for being with us. Enjoy your weekend.